Namaste students, I am JVN Dr. Manakshi, Assistant Professor in Department Shalakya Tantra, Faculty of Ayurvedic Science, Jyoti Vidyapith Women's University। आज का हमारे डिस्कशन का टॉपिक है ट्यूमर्स ऑफ नोज। तो सबसे पहले हम पढ़ेंगे न्यूप्लाज्म ऑफ पीएनएस। तो पीएनएस may be affected by both benign neoplasm and malignant neoplasm. Benign neoplasma, osteomas, fibrous dysplasia, ossifying fibroma, ameloblastoma, inverted papilloma. First, malignant benign neoplasm is osteoma. It occurs in the age of 15 to 40 years, and the frequency is mostly affected in the frontal sinus, then ethmoid sinus and maxillary sinus. Slow-growing bone tumor and often remains asymptomatic. It can cause obstruction of ostium, mucosal formation, pressure symptoms, and treatment is local excision. Next, benign neoplasm is fibrous dysplasia. Bone is replaced by fibrous tissue. Maxillary sinus is mostly affected, then ethmoid or frontal sinus. Clinical features are disfigurement of face, nasal obstruction, displacement of eyes. In radiology, you will see the diffuse margins with ground glass appearance. Treatment is cosmetic reconstruction surgery. There is an image of fibrous dysplasia. Axial CT shows a radio-opaque mass obliterating maxillary sinus and nasal cavity on the right side. Next, benign neoplasm ameloblastoma or adamantinoma. It arises from the odontogenic tissue. It is locally aggressive, invades the maxillary sinus, and treatment is surgical excision. Next is the malignant neoplasm. The CA nose and the PNS constitutes the 0.44% of all malignancies in India. Frequency is highest in maxillary sinus, then in ethmoid sinus, then frontal sinus, and then last in ethmoid sinus. The etiology is nickel and chromium refineries, mahogany wood industries, leather tanning industries, and it occurs in Bantus tribes of South Africa due to use of stuff containing nickel and chromium. The malignant neoplasm lesions are squamous cell carcinoma, adenocarcinoma, adenoid cystic carcinoma, melanoma, sarcomas. First is the CA maxillary sinus. It arises from the lining of maxillary sinus in middle-aged males, 40 to 60 years of age, remain silent for a long time or showing only symptoms of sinusitis. In late cases, it destroys the bony walls and invades into the surrounding structures. And the carcinoma maxillary sinus has a clinical features: nasal stuffiness, bloodstain, nasal discharge, paresthesia or pain over cheek, epiphora. These are the early clinical features and often misdiagnosed and treated as the sinusitis. So there is a natural history and spread of maxillary carcinoma. In left side they have shown the infrastructure and right side they have shown the superstructure. CA maxillary sinus, the clinical features are based on extension. In the medial spread, there will be nasal obstruction and discharge and epistaxis. In superior spread, patient will have proptosis, diplopia, ocular pain, and epiphora. If there is inferior spread, then there will be extension of alveolus, um, dental pain, losing teeth, poor fitting dentures, and ulceration of gingiva, swelling hard palate. There is anterior spread, then there will be swelling of cheek, invasion of facial skin. If there is a posterior spread, then there will be trismus. If there is intracranial spread, then via ethmoid, cribriform plate or foramen lacerum. There can be lymphatic spread. The submandibular, upper jugular nodes, and retropharyngeal nodes are enlarged in the late stage. If there is systemic spread into the lungs and occasionally to the bones, CA maxillary sinus diagnosis by X-ray PNS, CT scan of PNS, coronal and axial X-ray, CT scan, biopsy can be done, the nasal mask can be excised or there can be endoscopic biopsy. Here's an image of CA maxillary sinus. The classification of maxillary sinus carcinoma is can be done by Ongren's classification, AJCC classification, and Liderman's classification. On Gurn's classification, the imaginary line is drawn between the medial canthus of the eye and the angle of mandible. The lesion above these are suprastructure, that is poor diagnosis, and lesion below these are the infrastructure. In HACC classification, it is done only for the squamous cell carcinoma. Histologically, it is is well differentiated, moderately differentiated, and poorly differentiated. The Litterman's classification to horizontal lines of Ceballos pass through the floors of orbits and maxillary sinus, producing the suprastructure, mesostructure, infrastructure. In suprastructure, there are ethmoid, sphenoid, and frontal sinuses, olfactory area of nose. In mesostructure, there is maxillary sinus and respiratory part of nose. In infrastructure, there is alveolar processes. You can see the Litterman's classification, the suprastructures, mesostructures, and infrastructure in this image. Then comes the TNM classification, staging a system of cancer of maxillary sinus by AJCC. There's T1, T2, T3, T4A, T4B, and staging NX, N0, N1, N2, N3, MX, M0, M1. Here the images of nodal metastasis, distant metastasis. In MO, no distant metastasis. M1 means distant metastasis. His staging from stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4A, stage 4B, stage 4C. CA maxillary sinus treatment is for squamous cell carcinoma. Combination of radiotherapy and surgery is a choice. Surgeries are total maxillectomy, partial maxillectomy. Prognosis is a 5-year survival rate is 30%. Webb Ferguson's incision is marked in this image, how the incision is done. And then the ethmoid sinus malignancy, it is a primary lesion, is not common in ethmoid sinus, occur as an extension from maxillary sinus growth. Clinical features are nasal obstruction, blood-stained nasal discharge, retroorbital pain, lateral displacement of eye and diplopia. Intracranial spread can cause meningitis. Treatment is pre-operative radiation and total ethmoidectomy. Prognosis 5 years, survival rate is 30%. Frontal sinus malignancy, it is uncommon, 40 to 50 years of age group is more involved, males are more affected. Clinical features are pain and swelling in frontal region. Growth can go past to the posterior to the anterior cranial fossa. Growth can extend through the ethmoids into the orbit. The treatment is pre-operative radiation and frontal sinusectomy. The sphenoid sinus malignancy, it is a the primary malignancy is very rare. Mostly the malignancy from other sinuses spread into the sphenoid sinus. Investigations are X-ray, CT scan, biopsy. Treatment is radiotherapy. So thank you, students. This session is powered by digital version 2.0, Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University. Hope you are satisfied with my digital session. If you have any query, please mention in the comment box. I will resolve it. Thank you so much. Namaste, हमेशा खुश रहो बिटिया. I am Julian Dr. Meenakshi, Assistant Professor in Department of Shalakya Tantra, Faculty of Ayurvedic Science, Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University. आज का हमारा टॉपिक है डिसीजेज ऑफ सलाइवरी ग्लैंड्स. इससे पहले वाली वीडियो में हमने पढ़ाया था कि कौन कौन से डिसीजेज होते हैं सलाइवरी ग्लैंड्स के. फर्स्ट उसमें डिवीजन था नॉन नियोप्लास्टिक डिसऑर्डर्स ऑफ सलाइवरी ग्लैंड्स एंड नियोप्लाज्म ऑफ सलाइवरी ग्लैंड्स. तो नॉन नियोप्लास्टिक सलाइवरी ग्लैंड्स डिसऑर्डर्स में हमने पढ़ा था मम्स और एक्यूट सुपरेटिव पेरोटाइटिस. तो आज हम पढ़ेंगे दूसरे नॉन नियोप्लास्टिक डिसऑर्डर्स जिसमें है क्रॉनिक रिकरेंट सैलेंडेंटाइटिस. ठीक है, तो ये यूजुअली होता है, इन्वॉल्व करता है पैट्रिड ग्लैंड को विच शोज अ रिकरेंट बैक्टीरियल इन्फेक्शन. ड्यूरिंग एक्यूट exacerbation, carotid is enlarged and tender, and pus can be expressed from its duct. Between the acute episodes, gland is firm and slightly enlarged. The culture of pus from the duct reveals the Staphylococcus or Streptococcus bacteria. Salography shows the normal duct system. The treatment of acute episode is similar to that of the acute bacterial cellulitis. Between the attacks, patient is instructed to keep good oral hygiene, avoid drugs which dry oral mucosa, and use Salogox to promote salivation. Next disease is salactasis. Salactasis is the dilatation of the ductal system leading to stasis of secretions which predisposes to infection. Clinically, salactasis resembles the chronic recurrent sialenditis, which can be differentiated from it by silography. Different degrees of dilatation of the ductal system, like punctate, globular, or cavity types, may be seen. Sialectasis may be congenital, associated with granulomatous disease or autoimmune disease such as Sjogren's syndrome. The treatment of this disease, sialectasis, is conservative treatment, which include the repeated aspiration, compression, dilatation of the papilla, and stent placement. Next disease is the granulomatous diseases. The tuberculosis, sarcoidosis, and actinomycosis may involve the salivary glands. Tubercular infection may involve parenchyma or lymph nodes of the parotid and present as a non-tender mass. Sometimes the overlying skin undergoes necrosis, leading to a fistula formation. The surgical excision of the involved tissue and anti-tubercular treatment usually control the disease. The symptoms of the granulomatous diseases are frequent bacterial and fungal infections, swollen lymph nodes, persistent diarrhea. The treatment of granulomatous diseases is the surgical drainage and large doses of penicillin or tetracycline. Then next disease is salivary calculi. The calculi may form in the ducts of submandibular or parotid glands. They are formed by the deposition of calcium phosphate on the organic matrix of mucin or cellular debris. About 90% of the stones are seen in submandibular and 10% are seen in the parotid gland. The stones may form in the duct or parenchyma of the gland. The symptoms of salivary calculi are intermittent swelling of the involved gland and pain due to obstruction of the outflow of the saliva. Diagnosis of salivary calculi can be done by a stone is visible at the duct opening or can be palpated. About 80% of the stones are radio opaque and can be seen on appropriate X-rays. Then comes the treatment of salivary calculi. The stones in the peripheral part of submandibular or parotid ducts can be removed intraorally, while those at the hilum or in the parenchyma require the excision of the gland. Then next known neoplastic disorder of the salivary glands is Sjogren's syndrome, which is called the Sika syndrome. It is an autoimmune disorder involving the exocrine glands of the body. The Sjogren's syndrome can be primary or secondary. First, we will study the primary Sjogren's syndrome. It consists of xerostomia or xerophthalmia and is due to involvement of salivary and lacrimal glands. Parotid is the most common involved gland, and it has also been known as a benign lymphoepithelial lesion of parotid or Mikulicz disease. Both sexes are equally involved. Second type is the secondary Sjogren's syndrome, which consists of three major components. First is keratoconjunctivitis sicca, second is xerostomia, and third is the autoimmune connective tissue disorders. So first, the keratoconjunctivitis sicca is due to involvement of the lacrimal gland. Second component is the xerostomia, which is due to the involvement of salivary glands and the minor mucous glands of the oral cavity. Third component is the autoimmune connective tissue disorder, usually the rheumatoid arthritis. Often there is bilateral swelling of the salivary glands, and it is also more common in females. 90% cases are females. Diagnosis of Sjogren's syndrome. Diagnosis depends on history and physical examination of the keratoconjunctivitis and xerostomia. Schirmer's test may be done to prove the decreased tear formation. and biopsy of lower lip for evidence of involvement of minor salivary glands. SSC and SSP antibodies are necessary for diagnosis. Raised ESR, positive rheumatoid factor, and positive anti-nuclear antibodies test help to exclude associated RA or SLA. इसके बाद में नेक्स्ट वीडियो में हम पढ़ेंगे the neoplasm of salivary glands. Thank you so much. This session is powered by Distro version 2.0, Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University. I hope you are satisfied with my digital session. If you have any query, please mention in the comment box. I will resolve it. Thank you so much.